Hello there, it's Look Movie Recaps again. Today I'm explaining a 2017 thriller film called Revenge. Watch out and take care. In the opening scenes, we are introduced to a huge and picturesque desert which makes it perfect for desert animal hunters, due to its lack of human interaction. Later, a helicopter arrives, carrying a man named Richard, and his girlfriend, Jennifer. At the moment, they will go to Richard's house which is located in the middle of the desert. They plan to spend some time together before Richard's annual hunting trip with his friends. The pilot gives Richard a gift as a welcoming gift for his passengers just before takeoff. A little while later, Richard walks inside and sees the seductive Jen, who seems to be aware of all men's fantasies. They then go enjoy a passionate fight in bed for a while. Later during the day, Richard gets a phone call from a woman that is later identified as his wife. The conversation between husband and wife goes very well, because his wife is sure Richard is only going to the desert to hunt. The following morning, Jennifer, who is only wearing underpants, walks to the kitchen to fetch some water. Then, out of nowhere, Jane is startled by the appearance of Richard's friends, who have come a day early from their scheduled hunting trip. Richard appears irritated by their early arrival because he had planned to keep his connection with Jen a secret. Therefore, since they have already arrived, Richard is compelled to let his two friends stay there. One of them is Stan, and the other one is Dimitri. We notice that Stan seems quite eager to see Jen's appearance when they are introducing themselves. They unwind and take it easy by the pool as dusk falls, admiring the gorgeous desert surroundings. Dimitri continues his enjoyment with his binoculars and he's become curious about the gift Richard received from the pilot. Richard continues by describing the substance as a highly strong and psychotic, having a tremendous effect when used. In actuality, a football squad could be destroyed by this tiny drug according to him. Richard adds that someone once overused it, and when the side effects kicked in, he cut off his own leg without feeling anything. In order to avoid that stuff from becoming source of contention among his friends, Richard tells Jennifer to keep it in a safe place. But it turns out that Jen is also intrigued by the narcotics that she has just learned about. So instead of keeping it in a safe place, Jennifer conceals it in her necklace. After that, to keep the males entertained, Jennifer leaves the house and dances attractively. In the middle of men who are deeply attracted to her, Jennifer transforms herself into a showgirl because of the night's delights. Stan is particularly passionate, and he is thrilled when Jen encourages him to participate in her erotic dance. The next day, Jennifer, who has just woken up, is greeted by Stan and taken to breakfast with him. At this moment, Richard is not at home, so Stan tries to take advantage of the situation to get closer to Jen. But it is really unfortunate for him because Jennifer simply ignores him, and returns to her room for no apparent reason. But even so, this man doesn't give up, and continue pursuing her to her room. With his disappointed tone, Stan asks why Jennifer is avoiding him, despite the fact that he thought she appeared to like him the night before. Jennifer then responds that he isn't the type of guy she is interested in, particularly given his short stature. Stan is offended by her, and now he hates her, but regardless he wants her to fulfill his uncontrollable lust. Jennifer, who is afraid, can only surrender to this man's sexual assaults. Shortly after, Dimitri shows up, but he doesn't say anything, and instead just stands there staring at his friends act. Then later he leaves and goes to turn on the TV and increase the volume, so he wouldn't hear Jen's screams. After a few hours, Richard returns to the house, and he feels strange to see that his two friends have fallen completely silent. Stan then tells Richard that there's been a slight problem with Jen, but he doesn't say what it is. Then Richard rushes to go see Jen. She asks him to call the helicopter right away because she wants to go home. Seeing his mistress crying, Richard seems to know what had really happened, so he walks out of the room and simply scolds his friends for their actions. But after Stan's behavior, it is obvious that Jen is not the fast girl to be raped in that place. When Jen wakes up again, she keeps saying that she wants to go home. But Richard only says that his friends will come and apologize to her. Plus, he has also given large sums of money so that she will forget about the whole thing. Jen is now unable to keep her emotions any longer, and she threatens to tell Richard's wife about their affair if the helicopter doesn't come to pick her up. Then Richard slaps her and this scares Jen, causing her to finally run away from that place, but Richard ran after her. When his two friends notice Jen running away, they join him in chasing after her. A few moments later, Jen's escape comes to an end when she sees the dead-end cliff in front of her. In the end, Richard and his friends arrive at the place and manage to corner her near the cliff. Richard then pleads and expresses his regret for his actions. He also tries to calm Jen down by claiming that he is calling the pilot to take her home immediately. As a result, Jen finally calms down seeing that her wish has been fulfilled. She is abruptly pushed down the cliff by Richard, piercing herself on a tree as she falls. This shocks Stan and Dimitri, because they weren't expecting Richard to have the guts to shove her off to die. Richard then explains that they would have been in danger if they had let her go, as they could be sentenced to 15 years in prison for their actions. To put it another way, Richard is also worried that his secret of having an affair in the desert will be revealed to his wife. After that, Richard and his friends go back to their house first to pick up their hunting equipment. They will return later to clean up any evidence of the murder, and then continue their hunting trip as if nothing had happened. The scene then switches to Jen, who is still in a stabbed state, and is starting to be swarmed by ants. It's very surprising to see that she is still alive, because the tree branches may not have hit her vital organs. With her body being stuck by a shrub, Jen tries to free herself and notices the lighter she often carries with her. Jen then expends all her strength and manages to grab it. Following that, she attempts to burn the dry shrub, causing it to break and allowing her to make her escape with a branch still stuck through her body. On the other side, Richard and his friends are making their way to Jen's location to clean up her body. Fortunately, the sound of their vehicle can be heard by Jen, prompting her to quickly move from that spot. The condition of her stomach, which is still stuck by a shrub branch, makes it difficult for her to move. But she still manages to hide just in time, and makes the three of them surprised when they realize Jen is no longer in that spot. They then assume that she had been rescued, or that she had run away on her own. Therefore, the three men will try to find a way down the cliff to confirm Jen's whereabouts. When Jen hears that they have left, she takes this opportunity to walk away from where she is currently. Since the distance to go around to get down the cliff is too far, these three men can only get to that spot when it is dark. At this point, they start to wonder how Jen could simply disappear. And at the same time they manage to find traces of Jen's blood, so they immediately follow the blood trail. As they continue to follow the trail of blood, their journey comes to a halt as the blood trail comes to an end in a lake. So the three of them then plan to split up to find Jen, but Stan seems to be hiding his fears all along, and he prefers to wait in the car in case she comes back. Meanwhile, Jen, who has been bleeding profusely, is still able to escape with her remaining strength. But from a distance she can hear the sound of a vehicle looking for her. In the midst of her panic, Dmitri appears with his quad bike, and goes away after not seeing Jen there. It turns out that Jen is hiding by holding her breath in the water. Once she has made her way to the shore, she sees Dmitri not far from where she is. Jen considers this situation as an opportunity for herself, because she sees Dmitri's left his rifle next to his vehicle. Dmitri, who has been caught off guard, tries to calm Jen, who looks eager to kill him. But unfortunately, it turns out that Dmitri only lured her by placing an unloaded weapon far away from him. Dmitri immediately informs his two friends, but he first wants to torture Jen before bringing her to them. Fortunately, Jen manages to grab the knife from Dmitri's pocket. As a result, Jen manages to stab Dmitri, killing him and leaving him in the lake. Jen then continues her escape with all the equipment she got from Dmitri. But the journey doesn't last long, because the vehicle she's riding runs out of gas. That means Jen will have to walk again with the branch still stuck in her stomach. Not far from there, Jen comes across a cave and intends to rest there for a short while. She is still in pain due to the wounds she suffered, and the wounds that are too extreme, making it difficult to treat it. When Jen sees the necklace she is wearing, she suddenly remembers the narcotics she had hidden the other day. At this point, she also recalls the effects that illegal stuff can have on people. Jen then eats it right away without giving it a second thought. Even though it tastes awful, but Jen has to eat it because she desperately needs the effects of the drug. Not long after, she starts to feel something different in her body that she can't explain. The hallucinogenic effects of the narcotics begins to react, where Jen starts to hear voices and experience severe hallucinations. In a semi-conscious state, she begins to prepare the emergency treatment for her wound. Jen, who now can't feel any pain anymore, finally does a very painful thing. As the knife slashes through the skin on her abdomen, she looks calm with no expression of pain. After she manages to remove the branch from her stomach, she burns the tin of the drink and places the hot tin on the wound in her stomach to stop the bleeding. The next day, the scene shifts to Stan, who is still sleeping in the car. Richard throws a dead animal on the windscreen of Stan's car. At this moment, they still don't know the condition of Dmitri, who has actually died. Stan, who has just woken up, walks to the lake to wash his face. But suddenly, he is shocked when he finds Dmitri's dead body emerging from the lake. But unlike Richard, he appears to be suppressing his rage over what happened to his best friend. Plus, he assumes that his friend's death is Jen's doing. They are then left with no choice but throw their friend's corpse in the lake. After that, Richard vents his temper, blaming Stan that he should have accompanied Dmitri before, but he instead sat quietly in the car. They then leave the location while thinking of other ways to locate Jen. Back to Jen, who is now recovered from her wounds. She gets the bird symbol from the beer can on her stomach, due to the treatment she did before. She then takes her rifle and rushes out of the cave. It turns out to be just a bad dream, and the effects of the drugs causing Jen to have bad dream over and over again. Once Jen has fully regained consciousness, she prepares herself to continue her journey. In other words, this time, the voyage is about getting even with them rather than about escaping. Jen, who first appeared fragile, has transformed into a fearless, resilient lady. With a shotgun in hand and overwhelming emotions, she starts to look for Richard and Stan. On the other side, Richard and Stan have found the quad bike that Jane had taken, and they are planning to split up to check around the area. Richard then leaves Stan first, while Stan, who still feels pain in his nose, takes a mirror to check the condition of it. But he has no idea that Jen can see his whereabouts thanks to the reflection in the mirror he is using. Jen moves quickly to follow Stan's direction as a result of her lack of patience. This hurt woman follows him, even though she is barefooted. After Stan has been driving around the desert for a while, his car starts to run out of fuel. So Jen uses this opportunity to take direct aim at him with a weapon, plus a scope. At this moment, Jen, with no experience at all, tries to aim at the vital parts of her target. The bullet only hits Stan's shoulder, and she can hear Stan's voice screaming in pain. When Jen gets back to her feet, she sees that Stan is no longer there. But Jen is able to follow the steps of the person who had raped her, by looking at the splattered blood on the ground. Meanwhile, Stan, who is already injured, puts on a sock to stop the bleeding. Jen, on the other hand, has lost track of him when her blood trail comes to a halt at a spot where she only finds his shoe. Stan, who is now hiding, loads his weapon with bullets to kill Jen from behind. However, he appears to have difficulty aiming due to the gunshot wound to his shoulder. Then, because of the injured hand, the shot misses and luckily only hit Jen on her ear. Jen, who is already injured on her ear, immediately runs away while Stan continues to shoot her. With a shard of torchlight, she tries to stop Stan's pursuit. Fortunately for her, the shards of glass manage to injure Stan, where he is now struggling to remove the pieces of glass that have stuck to his feet. He then manages to pull the glass out, and because he is no longer able to run, he returns to the car to chase Jen. The huge wound on his leg makes it difficult for him to step on the accelerator pedal. But because of the anger that overtakes him, he ignores the pain he is experiencing. Jen finally manages to kill the person who had raped her before. After seeing Stan's condition, Jen begins to hear a walkie-talkie call coming from Richard. As a result, her hatred grows even stronger as she hears the voice of the person who almost killed her. Richard, on the other hand, appears to be very disappointed that he is unable to locate Jen. Moreover, Stan did not show up at the location they had previously planned, and did not respond to his walkie-talkie call. He is now tired and annoyed, and finally decides to return to his house. As Richard gets home, he looks very stressed with the situation he is going through right now. He also thought that Stan, who had not returned, must have been killed by Jen. So he plans to leave the desert by contacting the helicopter pilot to take him. After that, he immediately cleans himself up before leaving the place. But he suddenly hears a suspicious voice, forcing him to check even though he is completely naked during that time. He thought that Jen has come to the house to kill him, but he finds nothing suspicious inside or outside the house. Richard is then startled by the sound of the TV, and suddenly, his fear of Jen's arrival becomes reality. It is at this point where Richard now seems to be unable to do anything with the situation, as Jen has targeted him with her shotgun. Jen's shot hit Richard in the stomach, causing them to engage in a firefight with one another. After being overwhelmed, Richard is forcing himself to walk away with a gunshot wound to his stomach. And Jen continues to chase him, but when Jen is about to enter the room, she is unaware that Richard is waiting to shoot her. Fortunately, the blood flowing from Richard's stomach caught him out, prompting Jen to find another way. Richard is now getting weaker from losing a lot of blood, using a food wrapper to stop the bleeding. Not long after, Jen manages to find him and a chase ensues between the two of them. Until one moment, the blood on the floor causes Jen, who is running, to slip. This situation allows Richard to attack her easily, and Jen, who is already weak, can't do much more to confront the man. Finally, Jen is forced to use her ultimate move by attacking the wound in Richard's stomach. She then takes the rifle and manages to kill Richard with her final shot. In the end, the three men who abused and almost killed Jen finally get what they deserved, and Jen's revenge is finally over. With the body caked with blood, she takes several satisfying steps outside before turning around when she hears the sound of a helicopter approaching. The film ends. If you've watched this far, thank you. Have a great day.